Hello and welcome everybody to our 75,000 subscriber special live stream. Thank you guys all for joining us today. Um, to get started really with this, I am going to answer some questions that I missed in previous live streams, but then I would like to cover right now, just simply because I didn't see anybody answer the inquiry at the beginning of this live stream with the questions. So um, I am going to I went and scrolled back and looked at some of the older ones. Um, some reason it seems like I know there are people on the live stream because people are commenting, but it's not showing up for some reason on the what's it called? The number of people showing up. Okay, now it's good. All right, so um now I am going to and now I found this cool new feature here. I can actually create live polls too, but I might play around with that. Um, so the first question I'm going to ask is that people have asked me this a lot is where do you find the reading list? Basically, for those who haven't found the reading list with all the top 100 books of finance, social class, and economics, um, you join my Substack as a free subscriber, and then you'll get an email and the welcome email. Check your spam box to make sure you got it because sometimes that happens, or the promotions or the update section. Um, and what you'll get is a um, a welcome email that will have the book, the PDF in there. So that's how you get it. So that's the first question. The second question is, what is your favorite financial center in the world? London, New York, Zurich, etc. Um, the question really is depends on what I want to do when I'm at that financial hub. Like for career opportunities, the best one is probably New York. For livability, it's probably Singapore. Unless if you count some of these wealthy centers of private wealth like Newport Beach or Lugano as financial centers, or Palm Beach, Florida, which I do not. I'm talking about like places that historically had like the big bourses and exchanges for their regions of the world. And so, like in terms of livability, I'd rank Singapore number one. For job opportunities, I would put New York City number one. And for tourist visiting, it's probably Zurich because I just like visiting Zurich personally. But New York's also a good tourist city too, as well as London and even Hong Kong and Singapore to a lesser extent. I think the financial centers are definitely good, generally vacation places, um, because there's just a lot of cool things to do in those places, even for people who aren't in finance. Um, and the next question is, what is my favorite Ferrari? Um, I'd probably be like the early 90s to mid 90s Testarossa. That's the one that like I imagined having as a kid. And a red one particularly. I don't really ever see myself driving a Ferrari, but if I were to get one, it would be maybe the newer version of that, of a red Testarossa, if they still make those. Um, the next question I have here is um, thoughts on the carnivore diet. Would you ever do it? Uh, you know what? Um, I don't think I would. I tried it when I lived in San Francisco and I got really sick. Like the brain fog's supposed to last 1 to 2 days. For me, it lasted 6. And I think the problem is I have a very cognitively intense career um, back then and still to this day. And your brain, or at least my brain, requires a lot of carbs to process. And like I just felt like I couldn't think. And if I'm going to be having an intellectually intense life, I need to fuel my brain. And so that's why I don't think I could ever go full like keto or full carnivore. I think I can eat less carbs on the margin to get in better shape. And I have done that several times. But going cold turkey is probably not very likely for me. Do you think that Bill Gates is a leftist? Yeah, I do. I don't really think that is really a question, just based on a lot of his philanthropic goals and his political statements. That's a pretty good conclusion to make. Have you seen the videos about Las Vegas losing tourism, and do you think this will continue? Um, yeah, um, I think that this will continue because the problem with Las Vegas, as I mentioned in the Pearl Drift video, is that it was a place that's main tourist attraction was that you can get a lot of cool experiences and certain vices that were either illegal in other places or way more harder to access or more expensive. Like Vegas was always the more affordable alternative to higher end vacation destinations. And I know there is a niche crowd for very high end people spending lots of money at some of the fanciest resorts in Vegas. But there are not enough of those people to carry the entire tourist economy for Vegas. Vegas's bread and butter was being like a more affordable, cheap weekend getaway, particularly for people from LA or San Francisco. And then they tried to upscale, and Vegas in many places, such as the restaurants, since when I was last there, is actually more expensive than some of these other places that people were coming from or other tourist attractions. Like, why? And with resort fees strapped onto the hotels too. Like, why would I pay a European vacation or a Miami vacation price or San Diego vacation price to go to Vegas? Like, I'm not the only one who's probably thinking this. I might be biased because I'm not really a big Vegas fan personally, because I don't really like a lot of the main things that people do there. But nonetheless, even people who do like a lot of the attractions in Vegas, like online gambling has made that a lot more accessible. Um, you can find nightlife in just about any big city in the world. So and so as a result, it's like, what's the appeal? Um, so that's the answer to that question. I think they're going to continue to struggle until they realize their roots and their place in the travel hierarchy. And I don't think that like reduced travel from Canada disproportionately hurts Vegas because a lot of Canadian snowbirds like to go there to get out of the cold. Um, and Oh, this guy in Calgary, you were playing the organ. I actually went to mass for the 5 o'clock mass after the meetup. So I wonder if you were playing the organ when I was there at the 5 o'clock mass in Calgary. That's a small world. Um, Next question of the pre-asked questions. Besides Orange County, what are top 3 cities you'd relocate to? Um, number one would be San Diego, but that kind of doesn't count because it's California. So if I had to strip out um, San Diego and Orange County, probably the relocate to one would be Lugano, Switzerland, as I've mentioned before. I really like Switzerland. Lugano is the warmest weather and it has Italian cuisine and it's a nice lake. That would be one. If I was if I did not have a family and I did not have the intention to having a family, Hawaii would be a good place to go. But since I have the intention of getting married and having children, I don't think I would live in Hawaii, and at least on a permanent basis. Um, and then other places I'd consider maybe Charleston, South Carolina, or Florida, um, Palm Beach, Florida, or Punta del Este in Uruguay, or yeah, and then if it was just summer only, Chicago. But yeah, but generally I'm more of a California type of person in places with Mediterranean climate and enough economic opportunity for me to stick around. The problem is the other places with um economies don't California climate don't really have the economic support to build my business. Um Next question. Will the population of the Western and Eastern US ever equalize? Um, no. 80% of the population in America lives in the Eastern Central time zones and basically the eastern half of the United States. And the reasons are mainly because those places have more water and therefore can grow enough agriculture and um, supply enough water to cities to support big populations. And a lot of the western half of the country is particularly dry and too arid to support large population numbers. Like the only cities I'm really worried about in terms of like water shortages are places like either Phoenix or Las Vegas, but Vegas is actually very efficient with how it manages its water. And Phoenix does have groundwater, but the bigger picture is that that's what's limiting population growth in those parts of the country, really. And still, most of the big cities are concentrated in the east, and the more newer migration patterns are moving south, not west anymore. Instead of people moving from northeast to California, they're moving from the northeast and the Midwest to Texas, Florida, and the southeast. Um, all right. Do you ever play The Legend of Zelda? If so, what's your favorite game of the series? Um, yeah, I have played the Zelda games, and my favorite game in the series um, is probably Tears of the Kingdom, actually, the most recent one. Uh, but I think there's really four that kind of stand out in the Mount Rushmore of The Legend of Zelda, which are Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. Those are by far the four best Zelda games. Wind Waker is a distant fifth, and then a distant sixth and seventh are Skyward Sword and Minish Cap, and then the rest of them, including the other all the other 2D Zeldas, I never really got into. So yeah, that's my answer to that. It's a good gaming series. And now that I've got all the pre questions answered, I'm going to start going to you guys' regular questions. And I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. But if you want to make sure that your question is answered and want priority, feel free to super chat because I do get a lot of questions on these live streams. And let's go. Is the VAT increase going to act like tariffs in the sense that they are not inflationary? A VAT increase, it depends what you mean by inflationary. I mean, it is kind of inflationary because you're increasing the prices of everything, but it does suppress demand too. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on that. Um, let's see. How you're doing, Nick? What's your opinion on physical gold and silver? I don't talk about specific investment advice really on these live streams. Like if you want more direct, like specific investment advice, I recommend scheduling a consultation with me. I run a wealth management firm for a living where I do these kind of things for people, and there's a link to the form if you're curious. I mean, I get my specific outlook on precious metals there. However, I might do a video just overall on the bull and bear case for precious metals in the future if that is of interest. Um, where are you going to put the 100K plaque when you get it? That's a good question, but let's not count my eggs before I have them. Like, we still have another 23,000 of you guys need to subscribe before I get to the silver play button. And my goal, ideally, is to get there by Christmas. But if I had to put it somewhere, I mean, I have to see, like, how big it is. If I could hang it on the wall, I'd probably put it on the wall to my right, the other side of the shelf. If it's too heavy to hang on a wall, then I'll probably put it on the shelf where you see that has the Montreal Expos hat on it. But, yeah, I think I'd hang it on the wall if depending on the weight. But, yeah, that's kind of my goal for the end of this year is to hit silver play button, so hopefully we get there. Um, by what age do you believe someone should live on their own? It depends on culture and context, but generally, you should be living on your own by the time you are in your mid 20s, unless if you have a good reason not to. Like, say, for example, you move back to your hometown from some other big city. It's okay to maybe stay at home for a while to get yourself set up and before you find an apartment. And generally, I think it could be okay to live at home as long as you're paying your parents at least 50% of market value rent for your room. Like if you're not doing that, at least you should be out by the time you graduate from college. And if you're going to stay after you graduate from college, you should at least pay your parents rent. And if you are a parent charging rent to your kids, you should probably put it in some secret investment fund for your kids. um, that you can give to them after they're married or later in life or something instead of pocketing it. But it's more about the principle of the matter than the revenue generated. So that's kind of my take on that. What are your strategies for leaving wealth to your kids? Well, it's you basically it's a combination of financial education and just passing down assets in a way that is equitable, that will not cause a lot of disputes, and make sure you have a well-written trust that some lawyer can't try to negotiate like their way out of it, or to negotiate somebody getting a bigger share or not. But I think the key really is financial education. And yeah, I probably only give about 90% of my estate to my kids. I think I would donate 10% um, to the church after I'm dead. But like that's kind of my take on inheritance. But yeah, I'd be like I'd give them 90%, but then I would teach them about the importance of financial management and probably wait to a certain age before they get any of it. What is my height and weight right now? What is your goal? Well, I mean, I'm about 6 feet tall in terms of my height. Um, in terms of my civic weight, I'm not going to disclose that. I would like to probably, I don't really need to lose a ton of weight, but I'd like to improve my body composition. So I probably could maybe lose like low double digit pounds, but like, I don't really, but it's more about just being healthier and longevity. I'd like to live to 110, and I need to probably eat in better shape to maintain my lifespan and my health span to do that. Um, do you play poker? I mean, I get invited to like charity poker events maybe once a year or so, and I play there, but I would not say I'm a very good poker player, and I prefer more analytical strategy games versus games of chance. And there are some sort of skills to poker, but I think it is still mostly a game of chance. Um, yeah. Let's see. What are your thoughts on social status and health? Why do people in upper classes seem to suffer from more stress, both cardiovascular and neurological? I don't think that's entirely true, honestly, especially once you're in retirement age. That's definitely not true. Lower income people tend to suffer a lot more stress because um, they can't really use certain basic financial solutions to their medical problems. They're worried about being able to have insurance to cover their health if they live in the United States, or or they don't have the time to exercise or eat healthy, or take some or retire when they're at a certain age to lower their stress levels. So, yeah, I think some people who are aspiring wealthy will take very high stress, very high paying, but high stress jobs. And so but that's a choice. That's not something that is required. They could have a more comfortable middle class life if they choose to, or they can take a career that may not pay as much upfront, but in the long run could get you into counter elite. Also, a lot of people pursue the startup life, and the startup life can be very stressful. The entrepreneurship life. So that I think that is why there's the perception that higher class people have more stressful lives. But if you adjust it really for career choices and lifestyle choices, and also a lot of those entrepreneurs, once they get to upper class level of income, they're not stressed out anymore. So um, that's the other thing. And so it is even like, because when you do startup world, I talked about this in my video, how to get rich. Your income's going down during that time period, and part of the cause of the stress of an early stage startup founder is a lack of money, and and the social pressures involve moving down a social class to be able to pursue your entrepreneurial dreams. And I did a whole video about this, about class longevity, back in December, which I just posted in the comments just now if you want to watch. Um, let's see. Let's see. I came here for the chocolate bar in the thumbnail. Is it all gone? Yeah, I ate it all, and the people at the Kaye factory were not too happy with me because of that. Yeah, white chocolate is my favorite candy, and particularly Swiss white chocolate. And yeah, if you like chocolate, I recommend going to the Kaye factory in Gruyere, Switzerland. That's where I took that picture. Um, let's see. What's it called? How did Milan become the financial center of Europe? I don't think it has become the financial center of Europe. I still think that's London. I think Brexit has moved some operations to other cities like Paris, Frankfurt, and Milan. Milan has become recently like a center of private wealth because of Italy's new tax laws, which make it more favorable for very wealthy people to repatriate there versus living in other parts of Europe. But just because you have a few thousand high net worth individuals moving into the city doesn't mean that you are a financial hub. Um, so yeah, that's my take on that. Um, what is your favorite video series to make? I like the economic futures videos. I like learning about other countries and their economies and things like that. And I know they're not as popular as some of my other series, but I like learning about them. I like finding what states, US states are comparable to certain different economies in the world. Um, so I think those ones I particularly enjoy making, especially the recent ones, because I filmed a lot of them while I was on the road. You'll see with the Italy and Netherlands video and the Swiss video, which I already released. Um, And so that would be, I'd say, the number one. I also like making the debunking the doomer videos because it really challenges me because a lot of the doomer narratives are the most often on a superficial level, the most superficially logical arguments. So if you really want to try to find what the truth behind it is, it takes a little bit more critical thinking and to explain it in a way that doesn't come off as being an irrational Pollyanna. So I like making the debunking the doomer videos as well. I think I generally try to only make videos I think that are interesting. I've made a priority to make videos that I like to make, and I actually want to educate myself as much as you guys on the topics. Like if I was really trying just to maximize the viewers and the ratings, I would just make videos only about unique quirks and social classes and comparisons and social classes and prole drift videos till the cows come home. But I've only had 5 videos worth of ideas for prole drift, so I stopped that series because I don't have anything else to say about it. I think I've said everything there is to say about it in the last few weeks. So um, that is kind of so I just try to make my videos I think are intellectually stimulating both for me and for you guys. Um, what's it called? Um, what class do you consider myself? I consider myself to be in the independent professional class. I'm self-employed and I have a diverse set of clients, but my business isn't big enough that I could just retire tomorrow and hire somebody else to manage it and still live a life of luxury. That's what it'll take for me to move up to the next level. And I'm not quite there yet. Um, let's see. Uh, what's it called? Do you think equity markets will continue ripping? Do you think CapEx and AI is sustainable? I'm actually having a video about CapEx and AI companies investing in themselves. My colleague Murphy did a speech in San Diego about last Saturday that kind of goes into the recent headlines about this and what it means for markets and the economy and just kind of straight up facts to help you make your own conclusions on it. That video is going to be coming out on Sunday. I'm going to release it for the members probably a few days before that, but that's kind of where my answer is going to be for that. Um, yeah, what is my day job? Well, my day job is I am a partner at a wealth management firm here in Southern California called Spearhead Advisors. Um, I manage money for high net worth individuals or those rapidly on their way to getting there. We invest in stocks, bonds, and a bunch of other things, sometimes options when it makes sense. But if you want to learn more about what my firm does and it might be of benefit to you, feel free to set up a consultation with me with a form below. But yeah, that's what my main full time job is building my wealth management business, and I do YouTube kind of as a hobby, and that has kind of grown and taken a life of its own thanks to all you guys. Um, and then, hi Nick, how did your upbringing influence your views on wealth and finance? Well, it influenced a lot because my Swiss grandparents were very critical to teaching me about finance and wealth management. They gave me stocks instead of cash at a fairly young age to make me curious about the markets. They taught me about the importance of saving money, and they even bought me children's books that were about the power of compound interest and things like that. So, um, I was very educated about money and finances and things like that from a very young age, and so yeah, I would say being culturally Swiss probably had an influence on that. In terms of geography, I lived in a place where there's a lot of new money and wealth, and so yet I was part of a relatively big family, and so I knew that like my parents weren't going to be able to just guarantee me the lifestyle that some of my classmates had, and so if I wanted to maintain the 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 type of life I had as a child, I'd have to work very hard to get there. And I also am fourth generation entrepreneur, so I was taught, and not maybe directly, but just indirectly, just seeing the experiences of my grandparents and my parents and my uncles that like there is a path other than just working at a job the rest of your life, and you can earn your freedom if you're willing to put in the effort to do so. So yeah, my upbringing probably has influenced a lot of my views. It's probably influenced my politics greatly as well. Being in a family of small business owners, probably why I have a certain ideological bent that's probably a little different than a lot of Californians. Um, so yeah, um, let's see. Any children's book recommendations, like about finance, or just generally? This is probably a question you better ask me like in 5 to 10 years when I have kids who are reading children's books. For right now, I have no idea of what are the good children's books that have written since the mid 1990s. So I don't think I have a good current view on that. Um, let's see. What is your personal risk tolerance from 1 to 100? Meanwhile, in investments or in terms of like my career and personal life? Because there's different aspects of my life that I have different levels of risk tolerance. Like my physical health, I have a fairly low risk tolerance. Like I tried a lot of extreme sports when I was a kid and a teenager, and as soon as I got even a minor injury, I'd quit. Like I don't mess around with things that can like mess with my physical or my mental health really. And that's why that's why I've never really tried to do anything that would jeopardize that. So in terms of health, I'm very low risk. In terms of like my personal life, I still am probably pretty risk averse. Like I like how I handle my interpersonal relationships. In terms of like career, I'm very high risk. I'm willing to quit a job if I don't have another one lined up. I'm willing to go for it when it comes to like my public life. Like the fact I'm doing this probably shows you I'm pretty risk tolerant when it comes to like my career and my public life. And in terms of like my investments, um, I'm probably moderate to moderately high risk. Like I'm willing to take some risks, but I'm not willing to go take on leverage or do any. And and I do back when I was a trader, I did usually put stop losses on things to define my risk levels. But yeah, I wasn't afraid to do more advanced investment strategies or higher beta stocks. But yeah, so my risk tolerance in my life is kind of all over the place, really, to be quite honest. Uh, yeah, track and field is not an extreme sport. but I never liked track and field because I'm a slow runner. So that's the answer to that question. Um, let's see. I'm gonna scroll through some other questions. Did you ever think this channel would ever get this far? Absolutely not. Like, my original goal when I made this channel, there really wasn't a goal because I did it as a hobby and I had no expectations going in. I just kind of wanted a place to put my ideas. But once I saw I broke like, I don't know, 250 subscribers after my first reaction video about now is 4 years ago. Um, then I started to get a little bit more competitive and my goal was 10,000 subscribers. Like, I remember I did the video, "Why You Shouldn't Be a YouTuber," and I said, like, if I'd ever break 10,000 subscribers, I would do a tour to meet all you guys. And I said that I was serious about my promise, but at the same time, I didn't think I'd ever get there, or it would take me several years that I wouldn't have even remembered that I said that. And it happened about 2 years after, or it was like maybe it was like a year or 2 after I said that, or it wasn't that far, and I just got a DM from one of you guys saying, "Hey," when I was about 17,000 subscribers, saying, "Hey, look, you broke the 10,000 threshold. You gotta pack your bags." And so I was like, "You know what? It's time to start the tour." And speaking of the tour, we had a great tour this year. San Diego was our last stop, this previous Saturday, and we went to, over 23 cities in 5 countries across the world: US, Canada, Netherlands, Italy, and Switzerland. And it was fun to meet a bunch of you guys everywhere. And we are going to be doing a bigger and better tour next year. And I need your guys' inputs on not only where I go, but within those cities, like what kind of events I should do. There's going to be, in the cities that can support it, 2 types of events. There's going to be one, so our regular meetup where I have a rent a venue and have myself and maybe one other speaker speak like a prepared speech and then take Q&A and mingle. And then I'll have second type of events, which I call more curated experiences, where I'd have like maybe 8 to 10 of us do some more private type event, like a high-end dinner or a round of golf or renting a boat or something like that, where you get to have a more, I don't know, exclusive experience and get to have fun while doing it. And I'm planning several of these across the country for next year. Um, the ones that we have so far officially are 2. We have one in the Gold Coast in Australia on February 7th, and we have one in Sydney on Friday, February 13th. And then I'm also going to be doing 2 in January, one in Newport Beach and one in Beverly Hills, California. And we're doing several other ones in the first half of the year. I just haven't set the days and the times, but the cities we have done are going to do include Atlanta, which has been requested a lot, Toronto, New York, Tampa, Palm Beach, Florida, Scottsdale, Arizona, San Francisco, and to be determined location in the state of Colorado, along with maybe Monterey in Northern California as well. Um, there'll be other places too, but I'm not. They'll all be after the 4th of July. And if you want to vote on where I should go for the tour, please fill out the, uh, the voting form that I just sent, and I'll resend it, just the responder link, so you guys can have it. But it'll be fun. The last tour was great. Got to meet a lot of you guys, and I look forward to seeing you guys all again in 2026. Um, so yeah. All right. Thoughts on Louisiana, Baton Rouge. Louisiana, they have a, I'm not really that optimistic on Louisiana. New Orleans was their great city, and it's falling into ruin post Katrina. And they haven't really been able, other than being like a big tourist and convention center, being able to really retool. And New Orleans has kind of reputation of being like, in Louisiana, I mean, sorry, has the reputation of being the most corrupt, politically red state in the United States, which makes it hard to have any meaningful reforms there. And Baton Rouge, the only thing I really know for is LSU. Um, I'm not really that an expert on Louisiana's economy, but there's an interesting video on YouTube called like "What is Wrong with Louisiana" that kind of goes into a bigger depth of kind of the issues that are plaguing it. And people I know who are from there have kind of given me the same kind of feedback on it. Yeah, I mean, Louisiana will turn around when New Orleans has a revival. I think that's what's going to need to happen first. Um, and so that's my take on Louisiana. Let's see what other questions. Who do you think are the most influential people in the world today? Well, there's a few of them. I think it's a lot of these intellectual thought leaders, but who have capital to invest in companies or to um, buy like politicians in the sense that they can donate a lot to campaigns to swing races. Like example really would be a person like Peter Thiel is probably one of the more influential people in the world right now. I mean, and generally also the heads of state still remain to be very influential people. Soros would be in that category of people as well. Um, I would say, so I want to find one on the left, the Soros family. But yeah, it's these people who have the combination of like some source of private wealth that they can use to invest in both um, private sector activities as well as being able to swing um, political primaries. That those are probably the most influential people nowadays. I guess the modern like so yeah. Um, let's see. As a law student, when is a good time to schedule a consulting call with you? Like you mean in general or like time of the or when or like a stage of life? Like if you want to schedule a consulting life call with me, here's the link to my Calendly page is where you can do that. Uh, but in terms of when in stage of life, it depends what your question is. Then if so, yeah. Thoughts on Canada? Um, I am not so bullish on Canada because I don't really particularly trust their leadership. And even when their economy is being run into the ground the last 15 years with no growth in GE per capita, they haven't been willing to do any meaningful structured reforms. I did a video in the end of 2023 called The Economic Future of Canada about how it's kind of this rentier economy where everybody expects to live off of the royalties of either their mines, their oil wells, or their rental apartments, and not actually, I don't know, innovate or produce real things beyond what's literally nailed down to the ground. And that is kind of a problem with Canada. And that's why they're just not competitive compared to the United States in a lot of ways. And the fact that they've had their economy is struggling and they didn't change to a new political party in this last election and kept going with a lot of the Trudeau economic policy, even it's under a different wrapper and Carney, is also making me a little bit less optimistic because it doesn't seem like they're willing to make the reforms needed to become more competitive. There's also the risk of Canada breaking up. I can't really assess the probability of it. I've seen mixed. Some people think that Wexit is inevitable, and I've seen others that it's just like a LARP and a joke. I'm an American, so I'm not really boots on the ground on Albertan politics, but I could see a world where Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan join as two states in the US, one red, one blue. The territories join the US that connect Alaska, and then Ontario and the Maritimes become a rump state of Canada, and Quebec becomes independent. That would be like the breakup scenario, but I can't give you a probability. It's probably less than 15% chance of happening. But the fact that it's not zero makes it interesting. Um, so there's the link to my video about the economic future of Canada. So if you want to know my full thoughts, I did a 27-minute video about it. Which Austrian economists do you like to follow, if any? I mean, I generally have a soft spot for Austrian economics in general, so I know all of them pretty well. Mises, Rothbard, Hayek, um, etc. When I was in college, I used to read a lot of Lou Rockwell and um, Tom Woods and stuff like that. But really, since then, I haven't really been reading that much Austrian economics because my general view on any sort of intellectual tradition is I have a short stint when I first learned about it that I absorb kind of everything about that topic. And once I have a good idea that I have like a, for lack of a better term, a mental LLM, or I can read any piece in the news and I can hypothetically know, oh, what would the Mises Institute think about this? And I'd be able to predict basically how they would respond to anything. I don't need to read anymore because I kind of already get their gist, if you know what I mean. So I haven't really been following it as closely as I used to because I generally understand it. But my main issue with Austrian economics, which I talked about in my iceberg series, is that just because you're directionally right and Austrians really understand the business cycle very well, it doesn't mean that you can just take out the mathematics of economics. Like I don't really like praxeology. Like you should be able to show your work for a lack of a better term. And if you can't like use your theories to be able to um, figure out different outcomes, yeah, and use economic metric models to help build that, it makes um, your school a little bit weaker than it should be otherwise. So that's why I feel like I'm a hybrid between Austrian economics and more mainstream Chicago economics. Is kind of my ideology is somewhere in between there because um, yeah, I just don't like the fact that they can't mathematically verify a lot of their things. And you've got to say more than just more libertarian government and gold standard. Yeah, those might be good ideas, but like you can't come up there. It's hard to come up with more creative solutions if you can't test solutions. And without a mathematical framework, you can't do any empirical testing with Austrian economics. Um, so that's my take on that. Is becoming a luxury realtor in New York worth it? I mean, it depends how good of a salesman and networker you are. Like real estate agents don't have very many barriers to entry. Like you don't even really need to go to college to be a real estate agent. Um, so you're gonna have tons and tons of competition. If you could figure out a way to stand out and build a network of reliable investors, if you're looking at investment property, or become just like the go-to guy, then great. Like a lot of realtors, they might sell these really big ticket houses, but if they're spending a lot on marketing, how much of their margin is being eaten just on spending a lot on ads that they pick you versus another realtor? The barriers to entry are low, which make it a tricky business, but the people who are good at it make a lot of money. So it really just ultimately decides on what's your aptitude for it, sales and high ticket sales with that in a red ocean type environment. Uh, let's see. Um, is there any chance analyzing politics with Nick video series on YouTube or Substack? Um, I don't know. Maybe I mean I might. I mean I've written a book about political philosophy 10 years ago, which kind of got that out of my system in a way. But when it comes to, if I was to make a second channel, it would be a travel focused channel. Like I kind of joked about it, it'd be like Republican Rick Steves, um, where I would just say my honest opinions on various places I've been in the world in an unfiltered way. It might not even be that political, honestly, because even though Rick Steves is a progressive, he's not hyper political all the time. But it'd be more just kind of like I've traveled enough, I've been enough places, but I would tell it from more the perspective of like somebody from a professional class background who wants to has like a $300 a night hotel budget, like good, but not like money is no object level good budget, and want to build a trip that is more catered to that audience versus the backpackers and the people who are trying to pinch every penny, or like the Instagram influencers who want to just show the fanciest, most opulent stuff to get views. So, yeah, that's kind of my take. Um, I am not a fan of Joseph Stiglitz for the most part. Um, I mean, I think he's just a typical like I think neo Keynesian economist, but I don't remember like the specific papers he wrote, so I can't really say my critique. It kind of gets lost. He's like there with like Krugman in that level. Um, yeah. Let's see. How close are you to getting married and starting a family? Well, I mean, you guys will find out when that is the time to find out. I try to keep my private life somewhat private. Let's see. Do I attend the TLM? What's it called? No, I do not. I generally prefer Novus Ordo. Like I've been to a few TLMs in my life, but it's just hard for me to connect when I don't understand the language. Like the best hybrid is you use the Latin for like the Agnus Dei and the Sanctus and the Hosanna in the highest, but like not the entire mass. So yeah, let's see. That's kind of my take on that. I would not say that that Tate is a MAGA Ricksties. I think that he's his own little corner of the internet. Um, what's the story behind the Space Needle on your shelf? Well, I went to Seattle and did a meetup, and I went to the Seattle store afterwards and bought a souvenir because I wanted to start buying little tokens of places that I've been to that kind of have unique things to put on this shelf. Like as you see in the top row, I have things I bought in Switzerland and in Italy and in Seattle. And like I'll probably do it for other cities in the future too. So yeah, that's kind of it's just kind of a memento from my Seattle meetup. So, yeah. Am I into fantasy football? No, I'm not. I don't like it at all. I tried it once in high school. I did the draft and I didn't pay attention to my team the entire season and I won the whole league basically doing nothing. It was just luck and I was like, "Oh, I'm never going to be better than this." And so I think I would just stop. And I don't watch the NFL. I personally don't like the NFL at all. Like, even when I was a hardcore sports fan, it was mostly NBA, Major League Baseball, college football, and college basketball. I think because I grew up in a city that didn't have any NFL teams for my youth, I just never got into the sport. Um, yeah. Um, let's see. So, yeah. And then, let's see. Are you pro gold standard? I generally am pro gold standard. Um, So the answer would be yes to that question. Um, would you say that boxing or martial arts has gone from noble to pro with all the vulgar ads, etc.? Um, I mean, it's always kind of been a lower class sport. I talked about that in the social class and sports video. I think boxing had a little bit more like formal elegance, but like the boxers always came from working class backgrounds. I don't think that's ever been not the case, really, at least in modern American history. Maybe in ancient Greece and Rome, the Greco-Roman boxers and wrestlers maybe were from more privileged backgrounds, but given this, like the damage it does to people's bodies and brains, if you had other options, like for economic advancement, you generally didn't go into combat sports, and I don't think that has changed. Um, Let's see. Do you think that the US will continue to dominate the world politically, economically, and culturally over the next 40 years? Yes, I do. I think if the US has struggles, it's more of a growing pain transition from one form of government to the other, kind of like when the Roman Republic transitioned to the Roman Empire. Like, if you want to compare it for historical example, we're not at the end, we're kind of at halftime for the American dominance of the world. Um, let's see. Have you read about edible economics? I've never heard of edible economics. Can you please enlighten me? Um, what's your opinion on MMT? I'm not a fan of MMT. It's just to justify inflationary increases in government spending and um, envy based tax policy. like we tried MMT in a very light fashion through the stimulus checks in 2021 and paying people not to work with extended unemployment benefits. And look what happened there. I did several videos about this back then. If they're still up on YouTube, you can watch them. Um, I did an economic future of Brazil video a couple of years ago in 2023, about the same time I released the Canada video. And honestly, my view on Brazil has not changed since then. So if you want my full thoughts on the economic future of Brazil, there you have it. I just posted it in the chat. Um, let's see. Um, and then let's see. Can a CPA break into wealth management? Yeah, I mean you could. There's two ways you can. One, um, there's three ways you can. Well, you get an MBA and use that as an opportunity to rebrand yourself. Two, you can start a CPA practice, and eventually people are going to ask you about what's the next logical step. It's like, okay, you helping me with my money and my taxes. Can you help me with my money in other ways? And you get your investment licenses and educate yourself and kind of start build a book with your CPA clients. That's the second way. And the third way is you can team up it with an RIA and kind of join that way and learn under the ropes through them. And you can be like the tax guy at an RIA and then branch off to doing investments once you've gained enough experience. So, yeah, um, that's kind of what the my take on that is. I'm just scrolling to see what other questions, mercantilist or statist. I would say I fit neither of those descriptions. Um, let's see. Um, I'm just scrolling here. Thoughts on crypto. I did a video 4 years ago where I go on my thoughts on Bitcoin. So watch out. Okay, so when in your life for consulting, basically when you feel like you need help to figure out like what your next step is, whether financially, whether it's in your business life, whether it's what path you want to choose, and you can take actionable steps to actually work towards it. Like if you're too busy being crammed with um, law school, you're not going to have time to actually take action on my suggestions. It's probably not worth your time. But whenever you have the time to actually uh, take suggestions, um, let's see. Um, I'm trying to see what other questions. I missed a lot of them when I was doing the opening ones. So, and if you have questions, feel free to ask right now, like because otherwise, if there's no more questions, I'm not going to keep going. Um, like, do you set a budget for yourself? How strict you are at personal spending or spending for mental health? I mean, what do you mean by spending for mental health? Like the Confessions of a Shopaholic type thing. Like I buy a new pair of pants to make myself feel good. Um, I set a budget for myself really in the sense of a target savings rate. So like I want to save a certain percentage of my gross income and as a minimum. And once I take that out, then I don't really budget anymore. Um, it's a little different now that I'm like in startup mode that like it especially in the early years of startup mode, I couldn't save as much as I would like because my income was lower because I was building a business. But once if you have a more stable job or once your business stabilizes, then you just I set generally a target savings rate and then I just feel letting myself spend around that. I'm probably gonna have to start budgeting more whenever I get married because um your expenses get easy. It's hard. It's easier to spend more if it's more than one person involved and if a family and other things and there's a lot more variables. But for myself, I could like mentally kind of intuitively keep track of my spending. But when there's other people involved, it's not as easy to do. So I think for families, it's very important to have a budget. But if yourself, as long as you can hit your savings target and you can pay yourself first, so you just put the whatever the fixed savings rate is into your brokerage account or your retirement accounts or whatever savings vehicle you have, then just know whatever you have left over, you're free to spend and just don't really go above that. But that's my take. How do you decide when to leave a job without having another one lined up? Well, I really only recommend doing that in two situations. One, if your job is costing you your mental health. Like if your job is making you really miserable and the damage, whether it's causing you to overspend or like it's causing your attention span to decline or other things that will just make your life worse in the long run, that's time to go. The second one is if you have a business plan to start a company, and depending on what industry, you either have clients already lined up or in industries that don't permit that kind of thing, you have 3 years of savings and a plan on how to get yourself on the running so you know exactly what you're going to be spending the next year doing. So you don't just quit a job and just sit at home for a week and do nothing and be like, now what? So, yeah, it's either when you're ready to start a business, which I talked about in a lot of my entrepreneurship videos, or if the mental health damage to your job is just too great to stay at it. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't be quitting jobs without having another one lined up. And even with the mental health example, you should still try to find something to line up. But yeah, that's if it's a situation that's just bad, um, sometimes you need to eject yourself out of it. Or if it's an ethical problem, like if you're working at a company that is doing something that you find to be unethical to a degree that like you can't live with yourself if you stay at the company, then you just have to leave. Um, yeah. Um, Is it true that there are less IPOs than before? And if it is, why do you think that's the case? Well, basically, since the passage of Sarbanes-Oxley in the early 2000s after the Enron debacle, the standards of reporting and compliance required to go public had increased a lot. And so it made it very cost prohibitive for smaller companies to go public. And also, the scrutiny of it was not very attractive to a lot of these tech founders of privately held companies. And the VC market developed to the point where a lot of unicorn companies were able to get financing at much bigger valuations without having to go public. So going public went from the equivalent of nowadays, like the Series B or the Series A opportunity to like the Series G, or like you go there to cash out and take your profits after the bulk of the growth was done when you were private. And I think that's starting to change back in favor of companies going public again because higher interest rates make people's patience for VC investing decline to a certain degree. And I think you're going to see some deregulation to at least for smaller companies to make the compliance cost lower to go public. So, and then the emergence of SPACs. So I think it's starting to shift the other way now, but like basically from 2003 to 2020, yeah, that was true. Um, so yeah, let's see. What do you think about the 86 million Vietnamese not taking the digital ID? I don't really know enough about the story to have an informed opinion. And I'm not just gonna like say something out of nowhere. Um, so sorry if I can't really answer that question. Um, let's see. Um, what do you think the 300,000 federal workers jobs being cut and one third of our bureaucracy, Pareto principle at work? Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to see that much loss from it. I mean, it's going to impact the DC real estate market in a negative way and probably the local economy in DC in a negative way. But I mean, it will in the long run, those people will be placed in certain parts of the economy where they offer more value, um, and it'll have a more efficient society. Like I think the level of government employment is not so bare bones that these job losses will really cause any major risk to the economy. I think there's a lot more that can be done with less. I did a video about Doge where I went into this about how um, the Doge is kind of an informal class war in a lot of ways, where I kind of go into depth more in my thoughts on this. And I will get the link for the video and share it with you. I know I send a lot of my old videos on these chats for references, but I'd rather not repeat myself on something that I have a much longer and more, I don't know, prepared and well thought out explanation. So when I do have a video that answers the question, I like going back and referring to it. I guess that's the perk of having a library of over, um, what's it called? Over 300 videos in the catalog now. So I think it really helps give a nice little reference point for you guys to develop your financial education. Here it is. Doge, a weapon of class destruction, is the video that I'm specifically referring to. And I'm going to share it with you guys now in the chat. All right. Why do you think misleading financial information flourishes in social media? Because people want to be lied to a certain degree. Um, People want what's too good to be true. And a lot of people do not have the critical thinking, or if they do have the critical thinking, the um, the financial nihilistic element of things, or just the greed for return or the need for return emotionally overwhelms their critical thinking capacity. So I think that has to do with it. It's fear and greed, emotions, like anything, like the way those in the stock market gyrates, the way it does too. Um, yeah. What is my most controversial belief? Um, I'm probably not gonna say it on this live stream. You'll have to come to a meetup if you want to see hear my most controversial beliefs. I save that kind of stuff for in person. So yeah, that gives you guys a reason to come see me in 2026 if you want the answer to that question. Do you think the tariffs on China will be up anytime soon? Do you mean like removed? Um, I think they'll always keep some sort of tariff, at least as long as Trump's in charge. But yeah, I think a trade deal is eventually going to come. It's just a matter of how long is it going to take for negotiations to finish. Like the TikTok negotiations took almost 10 months to complete, and those had been ongoing for a while. Sometimes these things take time. So, yeah, I can't really give you a hard deadline. But I used to look at these 90-day things, but if they keep extending them, it means that there's probably something in the cards. And then when they stop extending it, it probably means that the deal failed. Um, what is your take on Mark Faber and Martin Armstrong? Um, I think they have some interesting ideas. I think Martin Armstrong is a little bit more, I would say, radical than I would ascribe to my own views. I actually have a good friend of mine who um, he's going to be in my video I'm releasing tomorrow about the fourth turning. He interviews Martin Armstrong on his podcast several times, and I don't really try to go too much into the conspiracy rabbit hole unless if I feel like there's enough evidence, or if there's enough with my intuition, I can connect enough dots. Like there are some conspiratorial beliefs that I do have, but not to the same degree as like the Martin Armstrongs of the world. Mark Faber, he wrote one of my favorite books on emerging markets called Tomorrow's Gold back in the day about the bull market in Asia that ended up coming. I've spoken to I not on Analyzing Finance with Nick, but I interviewed him on a podcast I did before I started Analyzing Finance with Nick. So I actually had a chance to chat with Mark Faber in the past, and he's a fellow Swiss, so good for him on that one. But I think he has some really interesting ideas when it comes to emerging markets. But I mean, I think he was wrong about hyperinflation doom, which he's been expecting for 30 years now and has not really happened. So I think there's things you can learn from him, but he's obviously not right about everything. Um, are you annoyed by hustle and virtue signaling posts on LinkedIn? And what do you think who of those who post them? Um, I think a lot of LinkedIn is very hollow and superficial and not very enlightening. I don't learn anything from LinkedIn. I try to avoid reading the news feed on LinkedIn. I only usually use LinkedIn to check my DMs and to post occasionally when I experiment with shorts, I post them on LinkedIn. But and it's good for networking, but mainly again, everything's all in the DMs on LinkedIn. So yeah, I think that it's a lot of corporate people who can't really say their mind for fear of losing their job or looking bad in front of their colleagues. So it tends to be very bland. And hustle culture stuff has some merit, but also has a lot of flaws. Like I think that we skewed the other way too much in the most recent years. The world has gotten too doomer and to give up and quit and quiet quitting and all this kind of thing, or the system is rigged against you. So, like maybe 10 years ago, we were too much on the hustler culture side. And now I think the society has shifted more towards the other way. Um, and so, like, yeah, you just have to be skeptical of a lot of these people to make sure that, like, I do believe in working hard and applying yourself, but it's got to have a clear reason why you're doing it and a certain endpoint. You can't just grind and live in austerity permanently because you'll eventually burn out. Um, advice on visiting Switzerland. Yeah, I have a lot of advice visiting Switzerland, but it depends on what you want to do. Um, So that's kind of the kicker there. I think going in the summer is probably the best time to go to Switzerland, unless if you're a big skier, because it's kind of rainy and cold the rest of the year. Um, it's fun to go on the hikes on the gondolas and then walk down the mountains. Um, I think there's a lot you can do there. Like there's several cities that I'd recommend going. I think the only one that I don't really think is a little overrated is Geneva. I'm not honestly quite a big fan of Geneva. But I might do a meetup in Geneva or Lausanne in the French, but I have to do at least one in the French part of Switzerland. But like I think Geneva is a little overrated, but I really like Zurich. I really like Bern. Lucerne is fun. The Graubünden canton, if you want like the more rural, like Heidi in the mountains type experience, and then Lugano if you want like a more efficient version of Italy, and you have Swiss like organization with Italian Catholicism and food. It's a really cool vibe. And then Interlaken, I think, is overrated too. I think Grindelwald is better than Interlaken if you're going to go to the Bernese Alps. But yeah, in general, I think Switzerland should be on close to the top of your list to visit. I generally might recommend in terms of ranking travel places like internationally. First, you should go to the countries of your origin if they're safe to go, of course, because there's a unique experience of seeing like especially for my American viewers, seeing like the homelands of your ancestors and like there it's not it's something that is hard to replicate elsewhere, and it's enough of a cultural difference that you'll get that experience, but it's close enough that it won't be completely lost. So that's usually what I recommend as the first stop for people to travel. Is once you've completed those, then you can branch out from there. And Switzerland is a pretty good place to go. Um, would you say that America is the biggest exporter of pro culture? It's like having Bud Light or Budweiser when you go to Oktoberfest. Um, I would say that America is the most biggest export of the visible side of pro culture. Although I mentioned in my video about which countries are most pro, like I think Europe is the biggest exporter of institutionalizing pro drift. Like a lot of the ideas surrounding the creation of the European welfare state and like their tax structures and their legal structures that kind of institutionalize a lot of pro behavior. have originated really from that part of the world. But like the consumer side of pearl drift, like fashion tents, for example, or like tattoos, yeah, that's kind of was like in the modern sense of it. I know tattoos originally originated from French Polynesia, but like and just in general the Polynesian culture, but like but a lot of the modern side of it, like, is an American export. So, like, America exports, like, the consumable side of Pearl Drift, but, like, the institutionalized and the morality side of it and the value side of it is mostly comes from Western Europe. Um, so, yeah, that's kind of my take on that. Are jobs actually keeping up with inflation in terms of income besides tech roles or roles tied to assets? Uh, If you're in a performance type job, it does, like sales or business development or something where you can mark your P&L, or like the reason why professional athlete salaries have caught up, for example, with inflation is because they negotiate in their collective bargaining agreement, they get a fixed percentage of revenue that goes to the player pool. Um, and like industries that have those kind of structures have caught up with inflation. But yeah, let's see. That's kind of my take on that. Is cryptocurrency compared to bubbles like the South Sea Company and Tulip Mania? It's very possible. We haven't seen a prolonged recession in the crypto era. Like Bitcoin came out like around '08, shortly after the GFC, and you've seen the COVID dip. You've seen like the bear market in 2022, but without a major economic recession. But if you, I want to see like a 1.5 to 2 year long downturn in the economy. Let's see if crypto survives that. That's kind of the main litmus test. And if it does, it might change my mind about it. Um, will you ever do a video on which college and universities are producers of parole and financial degradation? I don't know if you can connect it to a specific college. Like, is there a college that's known for generating pro beliefs, like a particular university? I mean, there's ones that have certain political biases, but and if you have a good answer to that, let me know. Like, what colleges in the United States or maybe even internationally have a reputation of exporting degeneracy or being the vanguards of it? I just haven't really seen that, but my mind is open to being changed. Um, so that's my take on that one. Um, let's see. Peter Schiff. My thoughts on Peter Schiff. I watched a lot of Peter Schiff and listened to a lot of his podcasts when I was in college. So this is my during my Austrian economics phase. And yeah, he makes some interesting points. But he also is kind of a broken record. I agree with him on some things. I disagree with him on other things. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's kind of my take on Peter Schiff. Um, would you say that America is the biggest I already answered that question. Do you think comparison markets are a useful tool or another way to gamble? It depends how much volume there is in it, for one, and um, two, do you have investments or assets that are dependent on the other outcome, and is the price right for the hedge? Like, it's a good question, but the answer is really it depends. You've been pretty bullish on AI in the past. Do you still think it will be as revolutionary as you thought, or have opinions changed? I still think it will be as revolutionary as I thought. What that means for the stock market and valuations currently is a different story. And I'm not going to go into my comments on that because I don't talk about my specific opinions on single stocks or specific investments on this channel. But yeah, in terms of the technology, I'm very bullish, but it could be a thing like the internet or the railroads where the rewards to investors are deferred or never really come. So, yeah, that's my take on that. Do you think that Trump should continue to go after some of these college endowments like Harvard? Um, I think that going after the endowment is a better way of doing it than going after the international students. Um, and if they aren't like, I mean, I think that these universities, a lot of them are hedge funds that happen to have a university attached to them, given especially a school like Harvard. But yeah, I mean, I don't. The question really is that how I go after, like, maybe cutting funding. I don't know why the federal government should be sponsoring research at private universities to the degree that they are. But endowment taxes, I don't I have mixed opinions on it. I don't really generally like the idea of using taxation in that way, but I mean, if they are doing things that are sabotaging the country, then it might be worth it. But I don't really have a strong belief on this one way or the other. But I'm generally not really a fan of going after the endowments directly through taxes. If you want to punish the universities, just cut off their research funding. Um, let's see. All right. I'm just scrolling up to see. What's your take on Nashville? Do you think is economically wise to live there? I went to Nashville for the tour, and it doesn't seem to be a place that is really a big fan of analyzing finance with Nick, based on my experience there. But um, it's a city that is on the rise, and I think Tennessee's low taxes and the whole cost of living make Nashville attractive. Um, I just the thing with Nashville is that what other than like I think HCA Hospital Corporation, or like the big hospital company out there. Um, I don't know of any companies that major Fortune 500 companies based in Nashville. Um, and so it's the job opportunities are there, but I think the ceiling might be a little bit lower for your career than people would think. But again, if you want a more relaxed lifestyle, a lower cost of living, Nashville is not a bad place to go. I personally wouldn't live there because of the climate, the lack of a beach, the lack of social circles, and I don't know if I would fit in with a lot of the culture there, and I don't really particularly care about country music. But I know a lot of people who move there and really like it. So, I think it'd be more of a personal life decision. I don't like if you're trying to just chase and move up the ladder, unless you're trying to start a business that caters to serving a city of major population growth, then it's not like it might not be. Or if you're somebody who's already more established and want to save on taxes, it could be a pretty good place to move. Or if you have a pretty flexible geography for your career, like you can do it anywhere. Um, yeah, like your salary is pretty much the same wherever you go, then you might as well go to Nashville because you can maintain your higher salary from a different state, but have much lower taxes and cost of living. So it's a lot of answers to a lot of these questions. It's like an it depends type of thing. What do I think about Minnesota? Um, I think it's too cold, to be quite honest, for me. I'm from California. I don't like snow. Um, I think that Minneapolis has been one of the few cities that has been able to keep its rents down due to increasing housing supply with population and exceeding it. So that's my take on Minnesota. I personally wouldn't live there because of the weather, and it has inherited a lot of the old Scandinavian politics, but with an American twist. Um, that's kind of why it's so blue relative to other like Great Lakes, Rust Belt states in terms of its voting patterns. But yeah, I just wouldn't really live there because of the prohibitive weather. But I've been there a couple of times. It was really nice experience the first time I went there, and it wasn't as nice of experience the second time I went there. But yeah, it's I don't really have anything against it. It's just not my preferred city. Um, yeah. Are you into Formula One at all? I went to a Formula One race in Singapore when I lived there, um, and it was cool to see it. But I generally don't watch auto racing in general. Um, like when you're live, you can only see one section of the track. I did go to the Indy 500. That's the only other one I went to in person, and that's kind of more of a cultural experience than a race. You only watch like the first and last 50 laps of the Indy 500 anyway. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my take on Formula One. I mean, it's probably I think it's better than NASCAR. It's the best and fastest cars out there. If I had a different life and I was born into old money, maybe I would have pursued being a Formula One driver because it seems like it'd be a really fun thing to do to race for a living and just the adrenaline, the sense of competition, and the high speeds of all that. But um, yeah, that's my take. I don't really watch racing on TV at all. Like if I wanted to consume any racing related media, I'd rather just play a racing video game, to be quite honest. Or just go to even better, just go to a go-kart track and race in real life, like K1 or something like that. Um, yeah. Um, what's it called? Next question. Is Vegas analyzing fans and Nick friendly? What do you mean? Like, would I have an event in Vegas or would I ever live in Vegas? I personally wouldn't live in Vegas. Um, it's too hot. I think the culture is not really aligned with a lot of my values to a certain degree. I don't really like to gamble. I don't drink alcohol. So I think I would that's why I don't really go to Vegas that much because I would get I mean, I've gone a few times to see it because it's kind of a curiosity just for everybody, but especially for us Americans. And if I had like a friend or a family member who had never been, maybe I'd show them. But um that's my take on Vegas. What I did the first meetup in Vegas actually for the tour in December of last year. So I guess Vegas will have a soft spot in my heart because it was kind of the founding of the Analyzing Finance with Nick tour. But like, yeah, it's not my one of my preferred destinations, but it's very easy to get to from where I live. So if I had a huge clamoring like a ton of you guys wanted me to do a meetup in Vegas, I would consider bringing the tour back there. Um, let's see. Um, advice if it's worth getting a Swiss citizenship. My husband is Swiss and I'm eligible through marriage, but I'd have to learn one of the official languages. It depends how much do you like learning foreign language, just to be quite honest. Um, I personally don't like learning foreign languages that much. Uh, but other people have a more of inclination to it. And if it's not too hard for you to do that, and it's not like these are languages that are useless, like German and French and Italian are some of the they're not quite as useful as like say Spanish or Arabic or Chinese, but they're fairly useful languages. They're like the tier below that. Um, and yeah, it's a good insurance policy if something bad happens to America. So, but I am biased because I am a Swiss. So let's see. Um, if the population starts to collapse, starts to become obvious in the next couple decades, how long will real estate remain a good investment? Yeah, you'll probably see a waterfall in real estate, and prices will drop to a level where it becomes a good investment again. Like there's not really such thing as good and bad investments. There's good and bad prices. Like sometimes the best price for an investment is zero. I don't think that's the case for real estate, but I think that yeah, I think you will see a major correction in real estate, but the when it's a bad investment is before the population crash notices. Well, once the population crash is noticeable, it'll already be priced into the real estate market. It's too late to get out at that point. Um, let's see. How would you go about finding love in the West these days? Um, I mean, watch my videos about class and dating a little bit. I go into that a little bit, but that's a Valentine's Day special because I don't want to become a manosphere or a modern dating social commentary channel. So I try to restrict my discussions on that. to the Valentine's Day special, which is once a year I make a video related to that. And in February, I did a live stream about that whole topic where I kind of get into it there. So yeah, what are some smart ways to take on risk in your 20s? There's a few of them. One of them actually goes, speaking of the dating question, goes into dating. It's if you are a single guy, cold approach, getting out there and being willing to face direct rejection. Like if you're relying solely on apps, um, or your social circle, you might have a very hard time finding somebody because of the adverse selection factors that go on in both social circle dating and in online dating. Some people get fortunate and they do meet their future husband or wife on online dating, but it's usually because they got lucky and went through years of pain to get there. But and I think that online dating can be a good supplement and part of like your quiver of arrows for your plan of attack. But I don't think it should be the only thing you're doing. And so if you want to take risk as a young man, you got to play a numbers game to a certain degree, and get yourself out there. Second thing you take risk is you are willing to take careers that may not pay as much immediately, but they give you better, like higher level experience than you would at a higher paying job. So like instead of targeting the salary and even like the name of the company that you're working at, the goal should be to the role that matters more. Like I'd rather if I was fresh out of school right now, I'd rather try to get a job as like a hedge fund research analyst or like on a portfolio management track that pays half the amount of money as saying being like a back office person at a big bank. Like that's another kind of risk is like being willing to take a shorter term cut in your pay or in the prestige of your firm in exchange of getting the right experience, especially if you went to a non-target school. So yeah, that's another example. The other thing is traveling. Go live for a year in another country, another side of the world, and you'll get a very good experience. I did that. And when I lived in Singapore and did my semester abroad, if you're in college, do a semester abroad. A lot of universities, like where I went to school, it's basically equivalent tuition. So the only really difference in your cost is like flying over there. And so I'm fortunate my university offered it like a direct swap that way, but others may not. But for those who can afford it, doing a semester abroad is another good type of thing to do. In your 20s. And then if you've built up enough work experience and enough savings, trying to start a business. I recommend if you're a young guy trying to start a business, I recommend doing it before you get married and before you have children. The business doesn't have to be successful before you get married because especially if your future wife has a job of her own. But I do recommend what's it called? Doing those kind of things before you have your expense profile gets too high. And usually when you have kids, your burn rate gets often too high to do a startup from scratch, unless if you had a successful career prior and built a lot of savings. So, um, yeah, that's kind of my take on risks that you can take in your 20s. Um, what is your favorite airline? Um, I mean, I haven't really flown some of the really fancy ones like Singapore Air or Emirates or anything like that. So, I mean, it feels like, I mean, a lot of the airlines are kind of very similar. But I would say, in terms of like, I like JetBlue because I get free Wi Fi on the plane. So, I guess they win by default in that way. So, they're one of my favorites for that reason. Um, The problem is that they don't fly out of my home airport, so I don't really use them very much. Um, so other than that, um, I don't really know because again, they're not different enough for me to really recognize it based on my experience. I've flown on several airlines around the world. I know ones I want to avoid. Like if you ask me the opposite question, like what are the airlines I like the least? yeah, um, that'd be a much easier question. But yeah, I guess I'll give it to JetBlue because they give me free Wi-Fi. Um, let's see. How much does geopolitics affect investing? I mean, I talked about that in my video about financial education. Um, and it depends. If for emerging market stocks and for commodities, it affects it a lot, especially if your country is the one being affected by the geopolitical issue, or the commodity you're investing is the country's being affected is a big exporter of that. But for like your S&P 500 or just like your random large cap US listed company, it doesn't affect it that much really at all. Like I think geopolitical risk is generally overpriced. Um, so it really the answer is it depends. Like for EM and commodities, it affects it a lot. I've never been on Allegiant, so I can't really say. I don't have a take on them. Um, let's see. Is marriage a net positive these days? Risk reward just seems to be very offset. I think marriage is a net positive, especially if you take the effort to do a lot of due diligence before you go into your marriage, and that your marriage is grounded on some sort of religious center outside of yourselves. Um, like, yeah, I mean, did a whole video about debunking the doomer about marriage, which has been actually one of my most controversial videos because um, it is people think I'm a little bit too optimistic or I'm not red pilled enough or whatever. The That's been most of the criticism I've gotten from that video. Um, but it's I have a full take on my view on whether marriage is still worth it or not. You can watch this video. Um, let's see. How many children would you like to have? Probably 3. 3 or 4, depending on, um, a variety of variables, but my view is I'll have 3 and see if I want a 4th after that. Um, like, um, I'm from a family of 5 myself, and the logistics of having 5 children in 1 house is very complicated. Yeah, and there's no half siblings or step siblings, so there's just 5 from the same parents, and it's, the complications from 4 to 5 were exponentially increased for some reason. Like 3 when I remember growing up, like, my middle sibling was born about when my oldest memories were, so I don't really have that much memories of being in a family less than 3, but I do have memories being in a family of 3, 4, and 5 kids, and 3 and 4 didn't feel that much different, but 5 was kinda the next level, and so yeah, that I would probably that's kind of, I think I would probably stop before I got to 5, just from my own childhood experience. Um, yeah. What is a reasonable debt to equity ratio when executing a small time roll up for restaurants in a 3 to 500K EBITDA range? I don't really have a good answer off the top of my head. If you want me to do a deeper dive analysis on that kind of thing, that's like a consulting type question, to be quite honest. And if you want to reach out to me for consulting, you can via my Calendly. Um, let's see. Um, let's see the next question. London or Switzerland in terms of education and network? I mean, are you from either London or Swiss? Are you from UK or Switzerland by heritage? Do you speak the Swiss languages? That's kind of my big. Um, and what do you want to do for a living? I think Switzerland probably has a higher quality of life, and it's probably a good place to transfer mid-career. Um, but like entry level, there's probably more opportunities in London, especially if you're not Swiss or don't speak the languages. I think in general, I think America has better opportunities than both of them for an ambitious young person. But between those two choices, even though I personally don't like London that much as a place to live, it probably has more opportunity if I had to look at it objectively. Um, yeah, let's see. I'm not going to talk about my specific views on silver on the live stream. I don't do specific trades. What do you do if your girlfriend wants to marry you, but you don't have the stability for that? Um, like if you're like in the military and being deployed, um, I can't really relate to that. I've never served, but you can, I would say, you can get engaged and wait for the wedding to when you get back. That that's just my intuition maybe of how to handle that one. But again, I really wouldn't be able to help. The Tampa Bay Rays since 2008 have the third most wins and have been at the very bottom of MLB payroll. Could you compare anything like that adjacent in business? Yeah, there's a lot of small businesses consistently outcompete bigger companies, like the startups in the economy. The whole disruption of like that happens all the time in the startup world is a good comparison of that. Um, so that would be like I can't think of a single example of a company off the top of my head. But in general, it's just leaner, more innovative startups consistently have a history of outcompeting. Like maybe example like Dollar Shave Club versus Gillette before they got bought would be one. And there are several others, but yeah. What's my opinion on the Texas Stock Exchange? Um, like I think it's just another place of electronic trading. I don't think it's going to really affect the market macro or microstructure that much. Is it worth living in Texas anymore? Um, it depends. Why are you living in Texas? Do you want to live in Texas because you have family ties there? Do you want to live in Texas because of low taxes? Do you want to live in Texas because of low cost of living? Um, there's a variety of reasons why you would want to live there. I personally wouldn't live in Texas because um, of the climate, and also I don't really have a very strong social circle. I do have one cousin who lives in Texas with his family, and he really loves it. And if I, for example, was somebody who had a was on a more fixed salary and knew that my income was going to grow maybe at the rate of inflation or slightly above that, I would move to a zero tax, lower cost of living state. I'd probably pick Florida, honestly, would be the one I would do. And if I had to pick another zero tax state, the second one would probably be Washington State. And Texas would be third. But um, I I don't know. I think Texas is fine to visit. It's a great place to do business. Like I'll probably be going to Texas a lot because of the meetups. It's one of our more popular states for analyzing finance with Nick. But would I live in Texas? Probably not for a variety of personal reasons. Um, let's see. All right, I'm gonna go back down to the bottom and see what are any videos on raising children well focused on different age ranges. I'm not gonna make videos about parenting. Actually, somebody asked me about that at the San Diego meetup, and I just I'm not a parent yet. And so I don't feel like I'm qualified to really talk about parenting at this point. I could talk about lessons my grandparents and my parents taught me that were helpful, but again, I was a kid 30 years ago. So it's a different world in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I mean, I will probably make those videos when I am a parent or I'm doing a lot of research on this because I'm close to becoming a parent. So, yeah, um, that's kind of my take on that. Um, let's see. I don't. How can we position ourselves to make a lot of money from the American Boogaloo? Um, I don't think there's going to be an American Boogaloo, so you're going to be just waiting for nothing. But if there was one, you need to get out of the country. That's really, unless if you passionately fight want to fight on one side or the other. If you wanted to really make money in a civil war, is that you need to back the winning side early enough in the war when it's uncertain, but late enough in the war where it's like maybe instead of a 50-50 chance, like maybe a 60 to 65% chance that one side's going to win, so that you get in early enough that you'll have a say in the post um, conflict order, but not too early that the outcome is too uncertain. But I don't think we're going to get there. So yeah, that's how people won on the French Revolution and financing other conflicts. If money was not an issue, would you drive a hypercar like a Bugatti or a Koenigsegg? Um, let's see. Um, I would definitely at least rent one for like a month just for the experience and drive on. The problem with these hypercars are a few things. One, you can't really drive at max speeds because um, you're going to be on a freeway with traffic or a street with traffic. Like, what's the point of driving around one of those supercars if you can't really, like, I don't know, use it for its full power? Like, I'd love to just like, if I had unlimited money, I'd keep one in a garage and a track and just drive it around the track. I'm not the best driver on earth, honestly, and if I had to deal with other traffic and me trying to speed, it'd probably get me killed or seriously injured. So, I think that if I had a track that I can keep the car, and then that also you don't have to worry about the privacy thing because you only drive it on the track. So, yeah, I mean, that would be my issue. That would be the circumstance that I would get one. And maybe, like, for when I'm older, like, for my 50th birthday, I'd rent one for, like, a day just for the and drive it around town just for the experience, like, me and my future wife just cruise around Pacific Coast Highway in, like, a Lamborghini or a Bugatti for my 50th birthday. Doesn't sound like a bad way to do it. Um, which has fallen off more in the last 10 years, Lambo or Ferrari? I mean, I'm not really follow cars that closely, but based on Ferrari's stock price, it seems like they've been able to keep their brand equity better than Lamborghini has. But take that opinion with um, a grain of salt. Um, and honestly, my dream car would be a fully driverless Rolls Royce, not a Ferrari. I'd like one of those cars that's super comfortable to sit in the back and I can like record YouTube videos or play Nintendo Switch or chat with or like I don't know, do whatever I want and have the car drive for me. Even take a nap if it's big enough back there. Like that would be kind of my ideal car, hyper luxury car that can do all the driving for me. Or even simpler, like those Waymos, that the Jaguar Waymos, except it can go everywhere, not just in those confined places that the Waymo cabs look like. I would love to have just completely automated driving. That's what would be my ideal. I like the freedom of not having of private transportation, being able to go where I want, not have to worry about a cab driver or public transit, but I don't actually like the actual act of driving. So, yeah, that's my take on that. Um, I'm getting married next year. I'd love to hear your thoughts on prenups and what the wealthy do. I have a little over a million net worth at 31. Um, first of all, like, does your future wife, what's her asset situation? Like, if you guys are relatively even going in, and there's no sentimental assets, like a specific piece of property that you would want to keep, then you might not need a prenup. But if there's a big imbalance or there are certain things you want to preserve. Like if you're a business owner and have your own company and you started it well before you met your future spouse, you definitely need a prenup because you don't want to lose your hard work and years of sweat equity in a divorce. So it really kind of depends on your circumstances. Like if you both have like, I don't know, like a six low to mid six figures in cash and no other meaningful assets, it's probably not worth it. If one of you has a lot more assets than the other, it's probably worth it. If you both have equities in businesses that you started or own certain real estate assets that you have sentimental value to, even if you're both equally wealthy, it's probably still good to have it. So, yeah, it depends on, and I'm not an attorney, so please talk to any attorneys before considering a prenup. That's not what I do. This is not legal advice. Um, I'm make sure to disclose that very clearly. Um, I think I'm going to be on this live stream for another 15 minutes. So if you want to make sure that your question is answered, please ask it within the next 15 minutes. And if you want to have priority, please leave a super chat because my voice is going to start running out and I need to also make myself some salmon before I go to bed. Thoughts on the future of Poland um, economically? I'm very bullish on the future of Poland. I think they're doing a lot of good things there with the way their economy is structured, and as Germany is deindustrializing itself, Poland is kind of capitalizing on its greatest neighbor kind of bowing out of the game. Um, let's see. Overall, would a top UK university or US university in the ranking of the 20s be better for a future engineer's career? Um, like, is it a top 20 UK? Like, what, like, top what? Or is it like if it's Oxbridge, then you should go to the UK. If it's anything other than Oxbridge, I would take the US. Um, if you could live in anywhere in Europe, where would you live? Lugano, Switzerland. I've said that multiple times. And if not Lugano, Switzerland, maybe somewhere in the German part of Switzerland. But yeah, that's where I would live. Um, let's see. Just paying my tariff for tonight's class. Congrats on 75K and hopefully 250K at the end of 2026. Thank you. And it was yeah, nice to get to know you in DC. Um and yeah, I look forward to doing the tour again and getting to 100. I think for 100K, what should I do special for the 100K live stream? I will do some acknowledgments and some thank yous for all the people who have helped me get to this point, both in my private life and through YouTube. And so that would be, but I have to figure out what else I'm going to do for the 100K live stream because I want to make it special. Um, yeah, maybe I'll do it at a different location or something like that. Um, yeah, favorite recent podcast. Um, I don't. Let me try to think of what podcast I've been listening to recently that I haven't before. I mean, maybe I mean, but all the podcasts I've been listening to, I have been listening to for a few years now, and I kind of talked them out already on the last live stream where I did all my recommendations for outside content. Um, does Nick believe the demographic decline of the elderly majority population make Germany, Austria, or Japan less prosperous? Um, it really depends on how well you can leverage technology and AI, because AI is going to put a lot of the what's it called? Um, the previous businesses at risk. The previous businesses, probably previous countries that had good demographics from having a large, young, educated population. That might not be an asset anymore because now you have a bunch of overeducated, underemployed people who might want to start revolutions. So, yeah. And Anna Rose, thank you for becoming a member. If you want access to members only videos or that I release, say, like 1 or 2 times a month, plus early releases, like 2 to 3 days before I release the main videos, feel free to join a member. The support is appreciated. Thoughts on Candace Owens? Um, I don't follow Candace Owens closely enough to have a super strong opinion on her full ideology. I mean, she just seems like a typical conservative influencer. Um, yeah, that's really all I have to say at this point. Um, yeah, um, maybe an interview with Morgan Housel. I mean, I would do one if he was willing to come on the channel. That's not a bad idea. There's a lot of people who I think would be interesting guests, but a lot of them either have too big of a profile or too busy. Um, they say Cristiano just became a billionaire. How would you advise him to invest if he was an investment manager? Well, I'd recommend he hires me because then he'd be supporting his family members. I'm technically, I think, his fifth cousin, according to my uncle, who's a genealogist. So I don't really want anything from him, but I thought about DMing him and just saying, "Hey, Cristiano, I just want to let you know we're fifth cousins." Um, that, yeah, that's all. I mean, I don't even watch soccer, but yeah, he's from Madeira, which is the same island that one of my great grandparents is from. So it's pretty easy to have those kind of connections. But in terms of what I would invest with him, $1 billion is a lot different than managing like $1 to $10 million. And so it would be a mix of a variety of things. There'd be a lot more tax considerations involved and a lot of like structured products and hedging and things like that. But it would be similar. I mean, I'd have to like given his unlimited basically income potential, given how popular it is, he can afford to take a lot more risk than most people can. But I would have him avoid private equity because that's how a lot of athletes get scammed. I would just put him in like a mix of high quality publicly traded equities and some bonds to have enough income to generate a good lifestyle post retirement, and then the rest of it I would invest in a little bit more aggressively. In fact, if I would just build a family office for him and run more like a hedge fund type strategy with about 10% of the money because he can afford that kind of level of speculation. And with his size, I probably wouldn't need any other clients, to be quite honest. Just start um, the Pardini Ronaldo family office. Um, just started this success equation and have fooled by random smart wizards. How long until I'm a billionaire? Um, it's a good question. It depends on what your starting point is. Like once you get into the billions, a lot of it is just chance to a certain degree of how long it takes to get there. But yeah, and I know. I mean, if you apply yourself and you really get it rolling and capitalize on the momentum, it can happen. It's just a matter of when you hit like the escape velocity and find an idea that has enough scale to make billions. And Will, I didn't forget you. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I appreciate all the thoughtful questions as well. Um, and also with Cristiano Ronaldo, I would buy some real estate in his portfolio too. Probably about 20% ish of it. Um, let's see. A mandatory reading for someone um, studying finance in college. Um, yeah, again, watch my video about how to educate yourself in finance or download the reading list from my Substack. That's where you will get that information because people ask me about book recommendations all the time. So I just decided to I just decided to just kind of put it all in one place. Trying to just to load up the link to the Substack for you guys to access it yourself. Here you go. Here you go. Best budgeting app recommendation. Um, I mean, I haven't really used budgeting apps in a long time. I mean, I used to use Mint back when I used a budgeting app, so I think I'll just say that one. Um, let's see. And what's it called? Do you plan on doing more interviews and collaborations with others? Yeah, I mean, the video I'm releasing tomorrow is going to have other a collaborator. I'm gonna have my colleague Murphy speak about AI, and yeah, I mean, I eventually, but it's not a priority. Like interviews are always going to be far less than 10% of the content of this channel. Oh, man, it's no longer available. I didn't know that. Shows you how disconnected I am to the whole um, Mint app. If you own a building with 20 rental apartments and you live in the penthouse, would you manage it all yourself or hire a real estate company to do it? It depends on the cost, but assuming it's a reasonable cost, I would just hire a property manager to do it. Um, it it saves you a lot of headaches. But again, at the right price, like like anything else. I think it's possible to get a career in finance without a degree. Without a finance degree, it is. Without a degree, I mean, theoretically, it's possible, but it's harder. You're making your life difficult doing it that way. 25% of the rent is extremely high. Like, I know people who hire property managers and they pay a flat fee that is far lower than that for a single building. Like that would, yeah, that seems very high to me. Um, so hmm. I didn't know the Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines is also from Madeira. Maybe I'm related to him too. Um, you seem bullish on America. What is the biggest reason why you think America's near future is bright? Well, there's a few reasons. One, this is still a country in the developed world that, other than like smaller places like Singapore, that capital is treated well and is business friendly and encourages entrepreneurship. We still have the entrepreneurial spirit in America. America is a leader in technology. America is a major exporter of some of the most vital industries in the world, whether that's defense, whether that's food, whether that's financial services or technology. Um, and and energy. So the U.S. is abundant in terms of natural resources and also as a major exporter in the stuff that people actually need to buy. Um, and so that's good. And America um, has a better job of being able to assimilate people from different backgrounds than other countries do. So those are, and if you want to do more on that, I did a video with Chris Street where I talked about the economic future of the USA in a more. I did this in January of this year, um, where I go into more detail of why I still remain bullish on the U.S. economy in the medium to long term. I think there's risk of recession, of course, and we're probably overdue for one, but yeah, longer term, I'm still optimistic. What should America do about the debt problem? I mean, we've already done something about the debt problem. It's called inflation. For like that's basic. We've inflated the way the debt through all the money printing the last several years. It's just now showing up with a lag in consumer prices, and so that's eventually what that's how it's being dealt with. The bigger question is not how we're going to deal with the debt. The bigger question really is um, how are we going to handle the socio political issues associated with running inflation hot? Because that's the bigger risk than the debt itself. Um, but yeah, the US is very wealthy, but how can we actually close the wealth gap? Why do we need to close the wealth gap? Like, that's the better question. The wealth gap is a symptom of growing prosperity in the United States and just the winner take all nature of the economy in certain industries due to the internet and automation creating more concentrated economies of scale. Like a lot of this inequality thing is, I think, to be quite frank, a lot is very envy driven to a certain degree. And every country in history that has tried to reduce inequality by force, or every major decline in inequality, is because of some catastrophic event happening, whether it's a famine, whether it's war, whether it's a Great Depression, or um, a hyperinflation. That's how you reduce inequalities. You crash the stock market, crash the real estate market. Um, that's the only way historically it ever happens. You can't just, the solution is not to fix inequality. The solution is to make the cost of living low enough that people on a more modest income can be comfortable. That is the solution. And that doesn't require narrowing the wealth gap. And I did a video about that too, how deflation solves class conflict. So, yeah, you don't want to, it's not about closing the wealth gap. It's about making, for those who have more modest ambition, or those who are putting in like the effort that people feel like is sufficient to be a productive member of society, can still have a good life. Um, so that's my answer to that. Does Nick have any charity goals or favorite charities? Well, there's mainly two main charitable causes I care about. One is the Roman Catholic Church, and the second one is autism related causes. I care a lot about autism related charities for a variety of personal reasons. So, yeah, those are probably the two that I care the most about by far. Um, can you name one person alive that personally consider more well-read than you in terms of the vast amount of topics? Yeah, there probably are plenty of people who are more well-read than me. Um, I would say, and specifically in certain niche topics, like I know people who are way more well-read in finance than myself, um, including some people who are team members of mine at my current firm are probably more well-read than me in actual like finance and economics. In terms of other topics, yeah, I mean, I would say I've had some pretty well-read relatives in my family who've read a lot of stuff, very different stuff than me. But yeah, um, and then and I've met people on occasion, like in my intellectual discussion groups that I participate in, that could be more well-read. But I don't really count. It's not like I can see some number on your forehead saying, how many books has this guy or girl read? So it's very difficult for me to tell, honestly. Um, if you had any estimate, how many books have you read in your lifetime? I've lost count. I mean, I don't know, it's several hundred, if not, it's over 1,000. And it's what you count just books. Like I've listened to a lot of audiobooks too. I've read several research reports of various kinds, and academic papers and pamphlets and blog posts and who knows what. Like I've lost count, honestly. From which part of your Switzerland is your family from? Uh, my grandfather is from Bern. My grandmother's family was from Horgen, which is a suburb of Zurich, but they Lenzerheide in the Graubünden 10 minutes away from Davos. So, yeah, it's German part of Switzerland. Um, yeah, that's favorite documentaries. Probably Floored is my favorite documentary. It's about life on the future's pit before the internet and automation kind of destroyed the old pit trading. I find it very entertaining and very interesting. So I would say it's Floored is my favorite one. Do I have political aspirations? Not at the moment. I mean, that could be something in the future, but I have other priorities first. Ask me in 15 to 20 years. Um, I change my mind on my view on whether I want to be involved in politics every couple years or so. Right now, I'm leaning in the no camp, but you never know. Do you own an expensive Swiss watch? I inherited a classic Swiss watch from my grandfather. I don't really know what you consider expensive or not. I don't really wear it for that reason. It's more of a family memento. So I don't think I'll ever buy like a Rolex or something like that because I have my grandfather's watch. So that's my view. Um, yeah. Um, how can we donate to the charities you care about as part of the community? Fundraiser ideas for Nick. Um, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that yet. Like, there's probably a function on YouTube that I can do that, or I can make a charity focused video once in a while. But yeah, it hasn't really something I've been thought about that closely. Um, let's see. Are you able to provide a link to the substance book recommendations? You have to join as a free subscriber, and you'll get a welcome email where you can download the PDF. So that's how you find it. So so like, yeah, and like I'll just send you a link to my most recent post, and there's an option to one of my more recent posts, and there should be an option within the post to join the Substack, and if it's not already on the homepage. So yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions that I missed. Any biographies you recommend? Yeah. I mean, my favorite biographies are not finance related biographies, though. I like this guy, David Moranis. He writes very good biographies. He wrote two of them about figures in sports. And the one that's my favorite biography is probably When Pride Still Mattered, which is about the life of Vince Lombardi, the coach of the Green Bay Packers. And this is somebody who doesn't really like or watch the NFL, but Lombardi had a very interesting life, and Moranis does a very good job of portraying it. The other one he wrote that's pretty good is called Clemente, which is the biography of Roberto Clemente, the former Hall of Famer for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who tragically died in a plane crash to help people in need in Central America. And those are two very good biographies. His Clinton and Obama ones weren't as good, to be quite honest. But I think that's because he let his political bias kind of get in the way of good storytelling. But I would say that those are the two favorite. It's hard to me to come up with like the favorites for a lot of these type of topics because I never think about it that way. But so I now use my default favorite are the ones that I remember the most, because that is kind of, and the book behind me, They Made America, it's not really a biography, but it's a kind of a collection of mini biographies of great entrepreneurs who started businesses in the history of America. And the other one, Orange County Inc., is kind of similar, which I used to put on this side, but I realized I'm going to rotate these. So if you have like a good coffee table size book that you want to showcase on the channel and you think I would like it, feel free to send it to my office and I will read it. And if I think it's a good book, it will be featured here on the shelf. So yeah, I used to read a lot of sports biographies in high school and middle school. Like I did a lot of book reports on biographies of baseball players such as Willie Mays and Roberto Clemente and a few other and Barry Bonds. Like, yeah, I used to read particularly baseball ones for some reason or another. I guess because they have longer careers and baseball is more integrated, like the history of the time. So maybe it makes for better biographies. So yeah, I don't really read that much sports content now, but like yeah, that's Have you ever played out of the park baseball? No, I've never heard of it, honestly. Um, are you familiar with Shahid Bolson? Um, no, I have not. I'll have to look into more of it. Would you like to live in Luxembourg or Liechtenstein? I've never been to Luxembourg. I've been to Liechtenstein once. I played mini golf there with my cousin. I kind of went there as a day trip from Switzerland just to see it. Um, there's not really much going on in Liechtenstein. It's got low taxes, but it's very small and remote relatively. In Luxembourg, yeah, it's a favorable tax place. It's probably not a bad place to have a job, but I don't know if I'd want to live there. It's very remote and it's very cold weather. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the few countries in Western Europe I haven't visited. I think like the only countries I haven't visited in what is considered traditionally Western Europe now are Andorra, Luxembourg, and Ireland. Unless you count Iceland as Western Europe, then Iceland's the fourth one. So yeah, any nice travel destinations, a lot of tourists. Um, unless if you're going around New Year's or Christmas, Uruguay would fit in that category. And just in general, places and even in the popular tourist countries that don't have a lot of Instagram worthy sites. Like if it's not a place that's popular for people to take pictures for social media, you're generally safe from the crowds. And that could be in any country. And there's a lot of nice places that don't fit in that category. So yeah. So that's kind of favorite classical fiction. Um Yeah, I don't really read that much classical fiction. I mean, some of the books that stood out, I don't know if I'd call them my favorites. It would be like The Catcher of the Rye, The Picture of Dorian Gray, Old Man and the Sea are three that kind of stood out to me in my reading for high school English um, and college English classes. But yeah, I stopped reading fiction recreationally in middle school, and I stopped reading it entirely after I graduated from college. I prefer consuming fiction through movies and video games than books. Um, yeah, I mean, The Firm from John Grisham is another good fiction piece. I think that's the last fiction book I read recreationally, and I was in college. Um, but maybe there's some other ones that I don't remember. But best bowling score. My best bowling score is a 205. Yeah, I hit 9 strikes in that game, but the problem is that the other frames were open, and so my score is a lot lower than it probably should have been for having 9 strikes in a game. Um, yeah, Mozart or Beethoven? I don't really have. I'm not a classical music aficionado, um, so I don't. I can't. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I probably like Chopin because I like piano, but um, that's but yeah, I'm not that strong. What are your thoughts on Orange? Never been. I've never really even heard of it, so I don't have much thoughts on it. But let's see. I think I'm gonna wrap this up because it's I went later than I thought I would, and it seems like the live stream is kind of tapering off anyway. But thank you guys all for watching. Let me know. I might do one of these at 80,000 subscribers next, or in early November, depending on how much time I have. I'm a little bit time crunched lately because I've been wrapping up the tour and trying to get caught up with the swing of things with my business and then planning the tour next year. So, and a lot of things going on in my personal life too. So I will try to do these live streams as much as I can. But yeah, I'm going to target once a month. Thank you guys for watching.